what was that? The whole trailer, I was watching this and what is happening right now? And can we just talk about how something can be remade for the sixth time, I think sixth time, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe fifth time, and still be so exhilarating. Hi everyone, my name is Pavni and you're probably here from my TikTok. Today we're going to talk about F4 Thailand. So bear in mind, this is going to be a bit of a fangirl kind of thing, a bit of a review, and just really talking about why this version is so different, because I am not a fan of Hana Yoridongo, of this entire trope. It's not it for me. There was a time when this bad boy trope and a really awful person turned into a really good person because of the power of love was right up my alley. But when I watched Boys Over Flowers or even Meteor Garden, the level of kind of harassment and the things the main character did to the female lead, just not palatable for me and not something I could get behind. When I watched Boys Over Flowers, my introduction to that was, well, that was my introduction to K-drama, but I was really rooting for the second couple in F4, that's Cunning and Kevin, and their progression. But I actually revisited that and I was like, even that is not that great, especially with what F4 Thailand is giving us. Mainly I want to talk about why F4 Thailand has become such a compelling thing, why I'm making so much content about it and I'm fangirling. I also have a few theories about the future direction of the show. I know it's a remake, but I know a lot of people are watching this for the first time as well, and there's just so much symbolism. There is an incredible deep dive podcast that I listen to about F4 Thailand that I absolutely adore. It's by Wit and Folly and it's called F4 Obsessed, which is very fitting. I listen to them every single week, so I'm gonna put their link in the bio as well, because if you're a fan like me, I think you'll really enjoy their content. Why this F4 and not all the other F4s? What has brought me to make content about this? In F4 Thailand, in the first episode and the second episode, they lay a few ground rules about what these characters do that make them a little bit more palatable, in my opinion. First one is they don't give the red card to girls. They never have, until of course Hana and Goria. The second thing is that they don't touch the people who receive the red card. Yes, there is something more insidious about getting other people to do your dirty work for you, and I think that's definitely going to be addressed. All of the demons and the skeletons in the closet of the F4 boys are definitely going to come back and haunt them, which is what makes this great. But here's the thing, just as people, as like 17-year-olds or 18-year-olds who mess up in life and can be redeemable, can be redeemed, I think this version of F4 Thailand has done the best job of convincing an audience to root for these boys. I'm not saying that, you know, there are something to be absolutely adored and fallen over for and like, you know, oh my god, I wish I had my own version of any one of these boys. That's not it. That's definitely not it for me. I love this story because of how much effort they've put in to tell a compelling story, a refreshing story of a tale that is literally as old as time. And then time, I think that was potentially done on purpose. So there is a level of belief that needs to be, a level of suspension of belief that needs to happen to still digest the story, because the bullying that does occur in these schools is awful and these characters are awful. But the podcast that I refer to put it really nicely. They said like how, you know, if you think of a fairy tale, currently the F4 boys exist in a cursed kingdom, and everybody is bad in the kingdom that is cursed. And Goria is the princess that comes along to lift the spell and wake everybody up, because of course this is a very Beauty and the Beast-esque thing, you know. You have the Beast in the castle, but there's also Mrs. Teapot, there's also Chip, there's also the clock, there's like all of these people who have characteristics of people that want to be better and can be better, but inevitably have been affected by what's going on in the kingdom and what's happened to the Beast. And now they're setting it up for things to change, and you have to love that for what that is, right? And in terms of Goria as well, this character is always meant to be the one that kind of stands up against the status quo and really fights. Like, she knows who she is in terms of morals, and she fights for that girl always. And a part of that is to do with her upbringing, a part of that is just to do with her being incredible. But Goria is my favorite one. She's just so full of love, and she represents love as a torchbearer. She's everybody's champion. And I know some people don't like this. A lot of comments that I got on my TikTok videos, people are like, I'm so annoyed by her. I don't know, I really like this Goria. She stands up for her friends, she stands up for what she believes in, she gives it to time, she dishes it out to even Ren. She's so in love with Ren because she sees him as like Prince Charming, the better guy. I think even her, bear in mind she's 16, 17, has something inside of her that believes in this misunderstood, brooding Romeo kind of character. And she wants to like think that Ren is that, you know, he's in this world but he's kind of different. And we've all been there, don't lie, most of us have been there, but we really wanted someone to be somebody else, and we saw the potential of the person they could be, so we fell for that. We fell for the potential. And that's really what I think happens with Goria and Ren. And in this version, Ren is so much nicer, like from the beginning. In all the other versions, from what I've read and bits of what I've seen, there is a type of self-interest in him protecting her. But in this one, something I really love that they did is he's always giving himself away to Goria without even realizing. Like, it's almost like at first he's fascinated by everything she is because of how she stands up to things, and he can't speak up about these things, you know. Something really significant is in the stadium where, you know, the F4 red card happens and they drive the red card receivers to, there's only 3 couches, and it's because Ren is meant to be the one that's never interested in Time's little game. And so you always see that from the beginning he wanted to be a better guy. A lot of the comments I get about Ren are that he's just using her to get over Mira, he's da. But I want to argue that in this version, in every other version that might have been true, but in this version he's genuinely falling for everything that Goria is, everything she stands for, the way she stands up for herself, but he doesn't even realize it. And this for me was really driven home with when he gave her the napkin. But in this version, I believe in Thai his initials were written on it, and so he was giving himself to her without realizing, and he doesn't realize this till it is too late because he is wrapped up in Mira. In terms of what I want for these 3 characters in this show and where I think it's going, honestly, for Ren, and I fell in love with him like I think everybody has. Ju Jirawat, the actor that plays Ren, it's his first time acting, but I think he killed it, especially in episode 5 when he looks at Goria, like at the end when he comes back. The look in his eyes, it's different. Like, you can tell this is not the same boy that left for Paris, and he's looking at her like, you're not the same as I left you. And you know, a lot of his arc is to do with wondering if Tam is right for Goria. So I'm really curious, but what I really want for him to happen is that for him, his story is for him to figure out who he is without pining after somebody else. You know, whether this was Mira, whether this is going to be Goria, he needs to be alone and know that he can be everything he wants to be and speak up and fight for what he believes in. Goria starts that change, but I hope really that's where he ends up, and I'm really rooting for that. And for the first time in history, I am rooting for Tham and Goria's love. I always believe these 2 characters don't belong together just because of the level of abuse that Tham's character usually dishes out to Goria's character. There's even, you know, it's abuse. Like, how are you meant to eventually think your soulmate is your abuser? You know, it's something that just never sat right with me personally, and something I could never. I know there is an element of believing in the power of change and that people can become good people, and I understand how people can get behind this, but this is just a very personal thing that I just didn't agree with. I still watched it because I truly believe that all kinds of stories need to be told, but I just couldn't get behind watching the way this unfolded in this boys over flowers, Hanayo Dongo kind of trope, and I just couldn't get behind it. But this version, he is so self-aware, and it is so attractive. It's not just attractive, it's another one of those things that adds to the believability that is that a word, believability, anyway, that Thyme can be redeemed, that he's just a boy who has turned into this kind of beast, because he's kind of swimming with sharks and he needs to stay afloat. Sharks being his mum, the world they come from, something that Kevin actually verbalizes and kind of acts as the speakerphone in all these episodes where he speaks up about this is the world we exist in. So I really love that too, and I'm hoping, because I know and I've heard that with episode 6 we're going like a few steps back and people are not gonna like the version of Tom that comes out, and this can be seen in the costumes, this can be seen in the settings, this can be seen in that episode 2 trailer, which, what was that? Like, what was that? The whole trailer, I was watching this and my sister was asleep and I woke her up and I was like, yeah, well, she woke up. And then I was like, you have to watch the trailer. And we were both just as like, what is happening right now? And can we just talk about how something can be remade for the 6th time? I think 6th time, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe 5th time. And still be so exhilarating. Like, I've tried to go back and watch the other versions because I was so like, what's gonna happen? But F4 Thailand have continuously kind of borrowed elements but made sure to deviate and keep it fresh enough that you can't quite guess where it's the ultimate remix, let's put it that way. It's the ultimate remix that fills in the gaps where others didn't step up to the plate. And then it paid attention to the criticism, because when the news of F4 Thailand was announced, I remember seeing it. I remember being one of those people like, does the story really need to get made? And everybody thought the same thing. There was so much criticism that poured in. Some of it crossed a few lines, especially towards the actors. I was like, what is happening? But the incredible thing is the production team, the writers, the directors, they listened and said, here is us taking the story and we're going to show you why it's so relevant to the times we exist in, why it's so relevant to the society we exist in, how commentary can be made, and what this, because in my opinion and from what I know, Hanayori Dongo was probably always meant to be commentary on class hierarchies. It was supposed to be commentary on, you know, the legacies being built up by these like tiger parents, dragon-esque parents, and the way it was limiting their children's growth, but also just repeating patterns and you know, abusive cycles and not breaking them. To an extent, not completely, but to an extent, and they've really driven that home. You know, some of the things that I've really noticed that I think are so cool is, number one, the fact that they're all driven to this kind of coliseum kind of thing, because people watch people receive this red card and get absolutely like torn apart until they quit. And isn't that just a huge statement of the arena that the cancel culture of social media plays in? Like, you get built up, you might be popular, but get given a red card, and that's exactly what happens. You know, you get driven to that middle of that coliseum and people are booing and they're throwing papers at you until you are absolutely like torn apart. And sometimes it is absolutely justified, and then there are times where it's a complete miscalculation. And with F4, they are meant to kind of portray that it's not always the right thing, you know. They're just kind of doing it to keep control, which is kind of scary. So I thought that was just like genius. And they do mention about online bullying, which is something that was a really personal issue with a lot of the actors as well, and the lines that fans, quote unquote fans, crossed. So that was really, really interesting for me. The second thing is the 2 fairy tales. So when it comes to Gorya, Tham and Ren, something I have noticed, something that I think is a very purposeful design, and something the podcast I mentioned also talks about, is the colors. So Tham and Gorya, well, Tham's is like black and red. He goes from this red rose to a black rose to a red rose. For Gorya, it's like she's green, she's the barley color, she's grass. And then for Mr. Ren, it's like the browns and the creams and the blue. Everything around Ren is blue, and everything around Tham is sort of that yellow red. When he's in love and when they're changing and becoming better people. And I think, well, for me, it really signified the 2 fairy tales, Beauty and the Beast and Cinderella. And of course, like they really, it has to be on purpose, because when they talk about it in the show, you know how people in the flower shop, cunning, they're like, oh my god, could Ren be your Prince Charming type of thing? And even like the billboard with Mira, it's all this like Cinderella blue. The dress that she wears in the second episode that Goria wears is like that blue. And the even in the next few episodes, even like Tham is wearing like blue because they're dealing a lot with Ren's plotline here. And then of course we've seen Tham in yellow, we've seen him in red, and we've seen him in black, which is the classic Beauty and the Beast. Goria is the beauty, Tham is the beast, and he's changing because, well, he's not changing because of her. He's always wanted to change, but I don't think he knew how, and I don't think he saw a point as to why. It was kind of like he was stuck in this bubble of what his mum brought him up in, of who he had to be. And he was like, he says it a lot too, he's like, I didn't know changing was an option for us. I didn't know being considerate was an option for someone like me. And Goria comes in and he's like, oh, now I kind of have a reason why I'm self-aware of in every way that I messed up, but now I want this girl to like me. I want her to, so for that I'm gonna actually pay attention to all this self-awareness and become a better person, or at least try. And I think he's still learning. That's why we're going to see the up and down, and it's going to completely break our hearts. Now moving on to my second three, so MJ, Cunning, and Kevin. He's so charming. I was not paying attention to this character, even though I loved Kim Bum's character at the time. It's not as great now. In Boys Over Flowers, and Win is really cute. I didn't really pay attention, but the banter between him and MJ, there's just so much chemistry between MJ and Kevin's characters, and I love them. I love that they are basically like the audience in a way. They're like kind of saying what we're thinking as we're watching it. They're making a lot of they're like the narrators almost of the world that this whole thing exists in. Canning is an amazing friend, but she is so badass in her own way. Like you can, and I made this TikTok where I was like, oh, Kevin is like totally intrigued by Goria, but he can't touch her because he sees this thing going on with, you know, Tham and Ren with her. And then so when he sees Canning, he kind of, but in every other version this has not been true, but I think there is a slight I'd like to fight for element of that in here. But of course he realizes like Canning is her own person, he cannot mess with her, even though, well, there's a whole storyline that unfolds that I don't want to spoil for the next few episodes that we're going to see. And then MJ, Nani, who plays MJ, I think is a great actor, and there's so much fun stuff I think to come when it comes to Nani's character. For now, he is that kind of silent spectator. He's the man that gets things done. You know, he literally waves his hand and all of the wrongdoings of F4 is wiped away. He waves his hand and he can turn anybody's world upside down, literally turning those boys that hurt Goria in episode 5 upside down. But I'm really curious as to where that's gonna go and how his character progresses. Maybe some love interest. Again, Wit and Folly have an amazing theory about a potential love interest for MJ, which if it is to be true, I would adore it so much. And with Canning, I think Kevin is going to be brutally honest about who he is as a person to her, and it's going to be her choice, which is always kind of how it's been in these versions. But there is some like level of pixie dust that the creators of F4 Thailand have sprinkled on this show that has me hoping and praying for better things to come. But I also know the nature of the Thai drama series that I've seen so far. There's a few cliches, you know, the fights were a part of that, and there's going to be some time jumps and some like melodrama, which is like the Lakorn element that might come in, because there is room with the tropes that are set in place for Hanayoidong. I'm really curious to see what's going to happen. I've talked a lot about a lot of different things. I'm going to try and edit this. It's going to be crazy. I want to know what you guys think. If anybody made it this far, if you want to hear me talk more about this and everything, like follow my socials and send me questions, because I will answer them. I will talk about this. I want to do as much as possible with this F4 fandom. I love it. I love it. I love it. I want to go more into like costumes, sets, everything, but that would literally be like hours and hours of video and audio, which for now I don't think I should do, but if this is okay with you guys, and up to episode 5 really symbolized the end of something and the beginning of something more, which I predicted before the trailer even came. I made a TikTok where I was like, I'm gonna make a YouTube video because it really feels like episode 5 was a huge wrap up because of the monologue that Tham gives at the end, where he kind of goes, I've only known her for such a short time, but so much has happened. And then they kind of confirm that this is one portion of the story closing and something bigger being set up by releasing that trailer for the trailer 2. And I feel like the trailer 2 might not also be the end of it, potentially a trailer 3, because in my head I was thinking, okay, like 16 episodes, maybe they would do like 444, and it's like, you know, quarters and like an act, like a 3-act structure, not a 3-act structure, but like, yeah, like acts of a play, act 1, act 2, act 3, blah blah blah. Potentially they could, but I would not be surprised. But then people who've seen F4 before will be like, what more is there to explore? I don't know, so many thoughts. I'm talking so much. Thank you if you've watched this far. Please follow, like, share, everything. It would be really cool to have an engaging community talk about this, and let me know what you guys want to see. I'm so excited. Happy F4 Thailand months. I don't know what I'm saying. I'll see you guys soon, as soon as you want me to make more. Bye.